And he turns around, whack, hits me, smacks me right in the nose, flash knockout. Like, yeah, I lost. I should be better trained because I knew I had a piece of him. I actually tried to sign up for karate and that, but my dad wasn't in favor of it for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. But I actually win the championship on that. And my dad was there, but it was the moment that he goes, I get it. This is what you do.
Hey there, business enthusiasts. Welcome to the Chills Podcast, brought to you by All Weather Roof. Because just like a sturdy roof, our conversations are built to last. I'm your host, Brent Loberg, and we're about to dive into the world of business, family, and the moments that give us those exhilarating chills. Ever wonder what keeps successful people inspired? Well, get ready to find out as we chat with some fantastic all-weather customers, partners, vendors, and friends. We'll explore their triumphs, challenges, and maybe even some unexpected secrets. After all, business is not just about numbers. It's about the people behind them. So grab your metaphorical popcorn and join us on this journey. Get ready to be inspired, maybe even get a few chills of your own. This is the Chills Podcast. Let the goosebumps begin. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris McCune. I'm the owner of McCune's Martial Arts. Been doing the business for the last 30 years, 20 plus here in Minnesota, another 10 in Las Vegas.
And how did you get started in martial arts?
I actually have a movie-style setup to how I got involved.
Okay.
Up in Monticello, where I grew up, junior high, the high school, junior high were connected. And I'd had some tussles throughout the years with kids my age, but with the high school and junior high being connected, and I walked into kind of the lunchroom area in between classes.
Oh, it sounds like a movie.
It does. It's a perfect setup for it. And I drop my comb, and there's no one there. I go to reach down for my comb, and there's this foot, and it's the school bully.
Okay.
Right? It's like the one kid, but he's he's at least 2 years older than I am, and I don't know how many how many years he failed. So he might be even older than that, but also significantly larger than I was. Right?
Sure.
But he's standing on my comb.
And at this time, you had any experience in martial arts?
No experience in martial arts.
Okay.
I was, 12 years old.
Okay.
Ish, 12, 13, right in that window. He used to stand on my comb, and he would get off my comb, and then the fight started. So we're throwing punches back and forth. Now, he had long hair, so I had his hair too, right? So I'm pumping away at him. But this is my first, real fight against a kid that's, a lot bigger, a lot older, more experienced than I was, right?
Sure.
So we're duking it out, and I have him just right, and he stops. Well, I have his hair, and he goes, okay, I'm good. So you know what happens after this, right? So being a generally good kid, I let him go because I think we're done.
Yeah.
Right? He turns around, whack, hits me, smacks me right in the nose, flash knockout. I drop.
So you were done at that point?
No, I was done. Unfortunately, he was done too, to be honest with you, right? But of course, my flash drop, I'm laying down right next to my comb.
Yeah.
Right? Because it wasn't about the comb, of course, right?
Yeah.
That was kind of my intro to fighting, and I should be better trained because I knew I had a piece of him.
Okay.
I lost, but I had a piece of him, and I knew it, and I could have won that whole thing had I been more trained, more prepared. What was interesting is that guy went on later in the day and actually ruptured the principal's spleen. I don't even remember the guy's name, right? I don't know if he, is in prison dead or found God. I don't know.
Sure.
Right? But I actually have to thank that bully for putting me on the path that led to 40 years of training.
Wow.
And the career and leading into the business for the last 30 years.
Okay. Interesting. So did you go into that? So at that point, did you sign up for karate, or what was your next step?
Well, yeah, no, my next step was, I actually tried to sign up for karate and that, but my dad wasn't in favor of it for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. I ran track, played tennis. He was not a fan of letting me go into football, which I kind of understand because so an excessive amount of injuries at football, and maybe that's where that was at. But in Monticello, it was pretty limited as to how many. The town of 5,000 people, right? It was pretty limited just to martial arts schools that we had. And I think we did have one karate school there. Okay. So I don't know the foundation of why Dad was, it could be a money thing as well too. It was after that we had moved up to Alaska, and then my high school buddies there, my freshman, sophomore year, we started dabbling. They were all martial arts of some sort. So we started kind of self-training, came back to Colorado once that started happening. So this is the end of my sophomore year. So 15 years old, and now I'm dabbling a lot. I'm looking for the Shotokan karates. Dogakuru ninjutsu was one of the ones that was a big craze back in the day, right? Judo, Aikido, Kung Fu, and I just happened to stumble in a new gym opened up. It was right across from where I was doing some cooking. I walked into that place, and it was almost exactly how the fight I just described went down.
Okay. So what, you decided to take that path? Was it like a redemption thing for you, or was it like you just want to be able to protect yourself, self-discipline? What was it that?
No, it was always very pragmatic. Like it was never about revenge. Certainly not. Like, again, I don't even remember who the guy was. And I wasn't hunting for him or even thinking about it at that point. It was more about it just being trained ready. The thought process being like, we're all human and we're all equally strong and fragile at the same time, that we can't win all.
Yeah.
It was a self-growth path. It kept me focused, for sure. A lot of variability in it, so it wasn't a monotony of the same thing over and over and over. So, like going to the gym, I used to lift quite a bit as well too, but it's mind-numbing after a while. You got to be focused to lift the weight. You have to be focused to lift it correctly.
Did you compete in martial arts?
Yeah, I did actually. Not so much on the kung fu that I've just been describing, just because that's combative. So it's very hard to compete with that when you're using things like thumb in the eye, headbutt, hair pulls. Like, it's all the stuff that's illegal in the UFC. But in about 1992 was when I opened my gym in Las Vegas, like late 92. The UFC, oddly enough, I just moved out of Denver at the time. The UFC was also late 1992, the very first one.
Yeah.
And it was in the Mammoth Event Center. It was not neat and pretty. So when they got it on TV, I'm like, oh, they gussied that up quite a bit since I was there. I was probably there earlier in the year. Had no idea at that time that was going on. Ironically, another connection, not just with the grappling eventually, but also with the announcers on that event. Kathy Long was there. Kathy Long was a 5-time world champ kickboxer. She was fresh in her championship career right at that moment. I hadn't met her yet. But she comes back into play a little bit later on.
Okay.
So I move out to Las Vegas at the kind of the request of a friend that I had trained with a little bit. Come take a look at it, check it out. Think about opening up a gym out here. And throughout all the things that I've been doing, I've been training everything. I didn't think about. I was struggling, but I did about 3.5 years of college, 2 up in Anchorage, 2 down in Fort Collins and CSU, with no direction. I had no idea what I'm doing with this. 100 different. I was interested in everything and nothing at the same time.
Yeah.
Nothing called to me. And so my buddy invites me out to Vegas to say, hey, come check it out and maybe open up a gym out here. I go out there, and all of a sudden it hits me. It goes, I'd never thought of opening a gym doing this. So I did. I made the leap and opened up a gym out there.
That was your first?
That was first. That was in 1990, like I said, late 1992.
So was this mixed martial arts?
No, it was still the kung fu,
So
but this style of kung fu is very mixed already.
Okay.
Right, it's very non-traditional in that sense. I haven't seen too many that are like that.
So were you adding your own flavor to it as well?
Totally, and it was also a template that allowed for that.
Okay.
Which I appreciated. I remember, like, one of my very first arts, the Shotokan karate that I'd mentioned. It didn't matter if you were 6'4" or 5'1". You're going to throw the punch the same way, and if you don't, you kind of get chewed out for it and hand adjusted. But there's radically different body styles in that. And then they were so. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Shotokan, but the style for me was just so overly regimented, and it felt kind of like military boot camp.
Yeah.
Right. When you did that, which was not a style that I learned well. It's not a teaching method that I learn well with. Right. I've got to have the freedom to explore on a more regular basis. And one would argue that it might slow down the learning when you do that because you're not staying focused on any one thing. But I can kind of compare and contrast that right now with 2 different teaching methods. And don't let me forget to get back to where we're going with that.
Okay.
2 different teaching methods. One is like very, very regimented. Like, you do 1,000 kicks a day. It's the same kick. You study that for a week. So it's 1,000 kicks every day, but it's the same kick all the time. Okay? You get in front of that man. That kick is devastating, right? It's perfect. You're right if he lands it. But if you step him anywhere outside of that, like, what if the guy dodges the kick? What if the guy catches the kick? What if the guy moves out of the way of the kick? Then what? They don't have the rest of the puzzle yet.
Yeah.
They're perfect in the one piece, and they don't have anything anywhere else. And then you go through this whole retinue again, and then you get the next one a little bit better. And I think maybe, like I said, on like one specific technique, it's not as good because you just haven't had as many repetitions and time to work it. But on a bigger picture, like on an overall, it just occurred to me, it reminds me of languages. You want to have a conversational language first, right, as opposed to a written. And I made the mistake of doing a Chinese written at the same time as doing the spoken, but it still wasn't even a conversational, right? So even in that scenario, what do you need to survive in the world? You need to be able to carry on a conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Do you need to read? You don't have to read at first, but you do need to be able to carry on a conversation. So the Kung Fu that I learned was very more like a conversation when it came to fighting. Like I've got all bits and pieces of it. It doesn't even mean they're good at it, but you can function, right? Whereas the other side is you learn a specific word, a specific kick, right? You get really, really good at one thing, but how do you blend that into a conversation? Right?
Yeah.
So I moved out to Las Vegas not only to open up that gym, but it was much closer to LA. I met my last coach there. That last coach, and I did not know this at the time, Kathy Long came up in the conversation.
Yeah.
And she was a hottie. I would love to meet her. And athletic, strong, dynamic women. I love it. They're fantastic.
For sure.
And so he giggles. And I don't think twice about it, right? Well, the next day, she's there.
At the gym.
Like, it was his gym, not my gym, out in LA. And I'm like, stumbling all over myself, which I don't normally do with celebrities. It was Kathy was an exception, right?
Yeah.
And what I didn't know, and why he was laughing, is my coach and she went to school together. They were great friends.
Okay.
And in addition, Kathy had trained a lot of her career in the same Kung Fu.
Oh, really?
So, right, exactly, right. So she and I are the only two masters in our art under that coach, William Pitchell.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thing where there's circle back around now. Here it goes further. So because Kathy was a hottie and a martial artist, right? She was doing some movies at the time. At that time, Kathy says, "Hey guys, Kung Fu guys, right? Hey Kung Fu guys, you got to come meet these Machado guys." She was just dumbfounded at how good they were at what they did. Now to realize this is the beginning of BJJ here in America. So then I got tied in with them, and it's weird because I was coming in from Las Vegas. It was about 3.5 hour drive to LA from there, but I was the one that just kept coming, and I kept coming over time. I just kept training and going. Now, what's interesting about this is that I went out there, and you're asking me if I was competing, and that's where this is going, is I had an opportunity to do world championships out of Long Beach.
And is this with your Kung Fu or with Jiu-Jitsu?
This is with the Jiu-Jitsu side.
Okay.
Right. So
you're being trained under Machado?
Under Machado. Higa Machado specifically, but I started with Jean-Jacques, and I had Jean-Jacques actually out here exactly 1 year ago. I just had him out in April last year.
Wow.
So I officially...
In the studio?
Yeah, I did. I started with Jean-Jacques in the beginning.
Okay.
Like that's who Kathy introduced us first. And then I bumped into his older brother, Hegan, at a little bit later time. There's 5 brothers. And I don't know what the transition and where it was that happened. And I couldn't even explain why, but we ended up with Hegan. Okay. I started with Jean-Jacques, but I ended up with Hegan. It's just so strange.
Jean-Jacques or Joe Rogan got his jiu-jitsu black belt from Jean-Jacques.
Exactly. So I brought him out. I hadn't had him out in the 20 years I've been back here in Minnesota. So I got Jean-Jacques out here as well, too. I bring my Coach Hegan out a little bit more often just because I'm under his affiliation, right? But Jean-Jacques is an absolute joy to have out here as well.
Wrong visit.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So. Yeah.
Crazy how that all worked.
Yeah, exactly. Big servo. And then so I go out there for Masters Worlds, and I was a little bit older, right?
Is it still in LA?
This is still in LA, and I want to say it was Long Beach, the college out there. I did a seminar with Kathy. She just brought me, because she's still out in LA, she brought me, she's got her own gym, is training young kids, just a group of kids that are Thai boxing, a little bit of grappling and everything. And I kind of teased her at that moment. I says, Kathy, it kind of strikes me as odd. I says, you introduced me to the grappling. Here I'm doing a grappling tournament as a black belt. You're still a white belt. You could have been a black belt in this before me. You started this, right? But it's just interesting as how, career paths and choices we make, that how often you get there. Like, she's much closer to LA. You'd think she'd get there more often. So then I go out. I actually win the championship on that. So I have a Masters World Champion to my name and to my title. Very, very proud of that.
BJJ.
With Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Wow. And your background was striking.
Well, yeah. And
you got a world champion.
Yeah. So it was, when I started grappling, it was kind of interesting. Even before I met the Machados, because my coach had met him, Kathy had met him. A couple of our guys had some catch-as-catch-can wrestling background, and those guys have been around as long as the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys have. Which is very interesting. So think, Vern Gagne here in Minnesota for the real wrestling that he did, right? But even before that, they were doing catch wrestling, which was also included like submits and block. And so those guys have been around a long time. And then the pancrase guys have been around a long time. So we're getting bits and pieces and tastes of that already even before we met the Machados. The Kung Fu has a little bit in it. Our Kung Fu has a little bit in it, but not a lot. It was one of those where, yeah, but if I was on the ground, I'd just do this, or I'd just do that.
Yeah.
Right? And so coach is walking me through it and going, well, no, actually you can't.
Yeah.
Not while you're doing this. So it struck me as interesting going, oh yeah, see, there's one of those holes. But if you remember what I was saying about training in the first place, it's like a betterment thing. How do you fill these holes? How do you be prepared?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we need to know, because we're not necessarily just training for average Joe.
Yeah.
I've always assumed in fights so that you don't underestimate who you have. I just assumed you're Bruce Lee or, Hoist Gracie on the other side. I don't know how good you are.
Sure.
Right? And so I'm never going to give you the chance to show it.
Yeah.
Right? And then I could downgrade as I go, too, going, oh, this guy doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to underestimate it, and then, I've got some killer on the other end, because he's just going to overwhelm me then,
Well, that mentality and how you kind of developed from that Kung Fu and different style.
Yeah.
I can see how that would help you in starting your business.
Yeah.
And just that mindset of kind of free flow, going with the flow, and you kind of learned as you went as well.
Yes.
Do you have any tidbits of information you can give the audience that would help them in their business?
Very much the ability to think outside the box. Well, okay, here's an example. Like approaching as a young man at 23 years old, opening up a gym in Las Vegas. This is my first business venture. I'm unemployed now because I moved out to Vegas, right? Every job I had leading up to this was, an interim kind of job. I did some laptop tech work. I did cooking for Marriott. I did, so much of, just lead up jobs. So that you're finishing up pieces of college that never culminated in anything. So I don't really know where I'm going. So this is a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
Kind of to go do this. My friend was out there, so that helped. He was my main training partner the whole time. Became also a master in that Kung Fu and a high ranking in the Jiu-Jitsu as well. So that helped to have him out there. But like trying to approach a bank going, hey, I've got here's my business outline, here's my proposal, here's all this. Some startup cash would be awesome. Here's return on investment sheets there, everything would go. Yeah, dozens upon dozens upon dozens of those, right? And really I don't blame them, right? Because what do you bank your money on?
Yeah.
You're right. It's a shot in the dark. Like I have the dream, and I'm trying to make them, envision this too, but it's just not working.
Yeah,
right?
I did it.
So I couldn't even exactly describe what the other methods were, but there's a lot of struggle. It was a lot of hard work to get it done. You just got to build relationships, get clients in, have them spread the word a little bit, right? So in my final statements to the banks were it evolved into, and as I've asked for some capital, maybe 5 times over that 30 years at different intervals, like we want to expand a little bit, or things are going well and we want to do this, we want to add equipment or whatever, right? And still not getting any, like nobody's biting at all. And I went, guys, I'm gonna do this whether you're on board or not. Okay, just seems like an opportunity if win-win on this, right? We get a little extra cash, we can make it happen a little bit faster, right? You get a return on investment for it, right? And they still wouldn't do it. And sure, I proved them wrong every time,
yeah,
right? And so I did it anyway. It's just harder work doing that,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's tenacity to try and think outside the box a little bit.
That fortitude to just keep moving even when everybody might not be on board. And
yeah, exactly. Or and just try different angles. Private investors instead. Hate tapping into family members because then they get leverage on you. But right.
Yeah.
But
I always think of obviously in martial arts as it's the discipline, and you had that.
you learned that, and then discipline to keep moving forward, even if you didn't have the help and the belief. You got to get other people to believe in you.
Yeah. I would hesitate to say I'm certainly not a natural at the martial arts, right? I've bumped into a couple of those guys that you can show them a couple of things, and now they're doing things that took me like 3 years to develop, and they're doing it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's almost disheartening at that point when I could. But oddly enough, those guys rarely can stay at it long enough because it goes, I don't understand. This is so easy. Why doesn't everybody just do this?
Yeah.
They just don't understand. So it doesn't grab them as much,
Sure.
right? So the guys that work for it, though,
They're not as invested.
yeah, exactly. They're not as invested. Which from a coaching standpoint, I see those guys. I'm like, oh my God, you would be so good at this. You'd be so much better than me, so much faster.
Yeah.
But they don't have that investment like I have. So for me, it was more about. It's not that I'm monstrously more talented than anyone else. I just didn't quit.
Yeah.
I was just tenacious about it.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. And that's what's kept me in the game. Just tenacity more than anything else.
Yeah.
It's always frustrating when you see like gyms come in that they have a huge investors, right? 100K plus investors, $1 million investors, right? Bam, they get their gym up and running. They've hired staff. They've got everything organized. They got the marketing's there. I cannot tell you how frustrating that is for me, and it really shouldn't be, right? But it is, because it's like, I envy it a little bit, going, man, I would love to have that budget for marketing. I would love to have these people on staff, right, that they have, right? So there is a little bit of the jealousy there, but it just frustrates me. But that being said, they don't always succeed. The UFC gym here in Minnesota was a great example of that, right? They were big flash in the pan. They were up on 35W North in Blaine. And everybody can run. All my guys can run. And you hear about the UFC gym. Oh, this could be trouble because it's so this could be so big and all that. And they didn't. But I was like, I think they were overextended.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is they were trying to do a family-friendly environment, like have kids jiu-jitsu in there and all this. But they were the UFC, and they didn't have a fighting team. It seems so strange to me. So they were kind of cross-marketing themselves, and I don't know the guys well at all. But it didn't last all that long, and I knew there was a huge amount of money that flashed in and gone.
Yeah.
So those guys don't always succeed with that. But
yeah, I got a buddy in southern Minnesota who runs a fairly large farm, and he always talks about when people start, they say he needs this big better. Well, you can remember his dad in the tractor with a bandana and dirt all over his face, and these people start up now, they think they need these big combines that are $500,000 like this. You got to start little and build as you work your way up.
Yeah.
So the name of the podcast is The Chills. So I explained it as like, what are those moments the good moments that make the hair stand up the back of your neck or under your arm? Is there something that you can share with your business
maybe on a personal / business side. My dad was not convinced that not only not starting martial arts in the first place way back when, but much later when I went out to Vegas to open up that gym, he was not happy about Vegas in the first place.
Yeah.
For the location, right? And then also, like, can you make a living doing that? And frankly, I didn't have a good answer for him at that point. And he came to see me kind of on our grand opening of the gym, so 2 years into that gym, and got to see me and all the people that I had met in the meantime. Kathy Long, Bill Vigil, my coach, the Insanders, the Machados, right? And all these good people that are associated with all those things, right?
Big names,
right? And these are the guys I'm getting training with, and I jump right in with them. And it is a dynamic kind of personality business to a certain degree. And my dad was there, and he saw it. And I have a picture of this. I was walking back towards him in the middle of his grand opening, so I'm dressed out in my uniform and everything, looked sharp, and walked back at him. He took a picture right then and there. I didn't see it till later, so I have it to this day. But it was the moment that he goes, "I get it. This is what you do."
Holy shit, I got the chills on my freaking arm right now.
And so, I kind of went against his wishes, but, it's a young man, so you're going to do that sometimes, right? Went against his wishes into this, but I made it work, and he saw that was my thing. That was my talent. That's what I did. And struggling through, late high school, college, not knowing where I'm going, I make this leap. And it's a leap to go out to Las Vegas to open up this gym. But it was my calling. like more so than winning a world championship, which is cool, right? But more so than that my guys do well, that I can help someone else get to that, does me far more, far more good than winning it myself. I want to see these guys win.
Yeah.
Right. And so I learned that I have that talent that I can like speak other people's learning languages and translate it that way. I can take a piece of what we do in roofing and tie it into how you would learn your next technique, right? Now, I'm not an expert in roofing, right? But I know just enough to be able to get you to relate, right? And not everybody thinks the same. So you got to, how do you say it in 10 different ways to help them learn certain, and my guys certainly learn faster than I do. Right? Yeah. When my dad saw that that's what I did, it was affirmation, certainly, that and then really cool that he was like super supportive of that. Like it was like a little switch change moment.
Oh yeah.
Right? And pretty important for me. And that's what started that fight, because I found my niche. I found that I was struggling there for a good number of years, and the opening up the gym, and then being responsible as a coach and the business owner through all of that, right? And we just made it go, over that 10 years in Vegas and the 20 plus years now in Minnesota. So
yeah, super meaningful father-son moment.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
I like it. So bonus question for you. And you can't say Kathy Long.
Okay.
Favorite fighter?
Oh, favorite fighter.
And I guess you could, even if it was a couple.
Yeah, no. Actually, no. That's Kathy would have been the first shot. You're right. Okay. It's interesting you say that, because I could put it like into categories, like favorite fighter for just sheer ability. But there's a guy that he was the craziest guy ever, Genki Sudo.
Okay.
Right. He'd come out there doing the robot or kung fu moves. I watched him throw 3 spinning back fists, land all 3. Genki Sudo is going to be one of my favorites for the flair, but also he's really talented.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it reminds me of your personality, how with your kung fu and how you kind of had your own little system as well.
Yeah.
And then kind of how you started your business. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's kind of fits in.
It does. And it reminds me of I don't know the exact quote, but Bruce Lee had a quote, like, be like water. Is it like?
Yeah.
So that's kind of it.
That's
like
what he did for. It always bugged me that in a lot of his movies they dubbed over his voice.
Yeah, did they? I didn't know that.
They did, but not that quote. So you can still look that one up on YouTube when he does that one. That's his voice, and you're like, oh, he's perfectly clear. I mean, a little bit of an accent, but it was very, very clear. So
fun. I like it. This was fun.
Yeah,
thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
that's sweet.
And that's a wrap, folks. A huge thank you to our incredible guests and, of course, All Weather Roof for making this podcast possible. If you enjoyed these conversations as much as we did, don't forget to hit subscribe and share the chills with your fellow business aficionados. Remember, it's not just about business, it's personal, and it's all about the people. Stay inspired, chase those dreams, and let the chills guide you. Till next time, this is Brent, signing off from the Chills Podcast. Catch you on the flip side.